Hey guys, Booligan here with Booligan Shooting Sports, and today we're going to talk digital night vision. We're not talking Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3 amplified tubes. We're not talking anything like that because I do not operate at that kind of budget. If you're getting into night vision, be expecting to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars for a kit. They will work very, very well. It will be very, very cool. However, you are going to spend a lot of money for it. But if you want to have some basic night enhanced shooting capabilities, digital night vision can work pretty well. On my wall, I've got a Sightmark digital night vision scope with a solar powered battery bank. I have solar powered night vision. I don't know that I've ever actually done a video on my solar powered night vision, but I just love saying solar powered night vision because it's possibly one of the dumbest sentences you can say, but actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it. You're stealing the sun to use a little bit of it later, and it works pretty well. I picked that up secondhand from a local guy. I paid like $250 for it. I got a screaming deal. That's normally like a $500 scope, and it works pretty well. The range is limited because digital night vision range isn't amazing. The scope that it's attached to isn't great. The video capture capabilities of it are fine. But I was contacted by a company called OneLeaf, and they asked if I wanted to try out their digital night vision scope. And I said, sure, of course. Let's give it a shot. And theirs is actually a pretty cool setup. It has some pretty cool features to it. And one feature that I really like is the fact that the digital night vision unit comes off and has its own special mounting point here, which means one thing that I am going to work on is a flip down helmet mounted setup just to run this if you don't want to run the full scope. But a little bit about how this setup works. First, we'll look at the optic itself. It includes a 3-12 by 56 millimeter front lens scope, and it's basic. It's like a mil-dot reticle. It's nothing too crazy, but it is a halfway decent scope. It does have illumination, and the illumination is really set up for the night vision. So it doesn't illuminate, even at its highest point, it doesn't illuminate a lot, just enough to make the reticle a little bit easier to see. You have adjustable turrets, you can lock them. It's, like I said, it's nothing too crazy, but it is a relatively decent little scope. It doesn't have the longest or shortest eye relief. This is actually where my sight picture is good using just the scope, and that's actually important, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Now, the night vision module itself, how these work is there's a digital camera inside. Like I said, it doesn't use an amplified tube, but there's basically a starlight camera inside that's able to pick up low light, certainly better light than your eyes can normally do. And then its performance is enhanced using an infrared illuminator, which helps illuminate anything downrange. Now, realistically, for functional shooting use, this kind of stuff is good for like maybe 100, 150 yards. If it's coupled with a decent optic, you can actually get really good like target identification. You can read license plates out at ranges further than that. So it just depends on kind of what you're using for. But one cool thing that these digital scopes offer is that it is still a camera. So it usually has some sort of daylight camera, the night camera. It can do pictures, it can do recording. You can do digital zoom on top of the actual zoom from the scope. So it sort of adds a bunch of features that otherwise wouldn't be there. It's almost like a shop camera. And for that reason, you see sometimes stuff like this being used with like airsoft videos. You see stuff like this being used with hunting videos occasionally in areas where hunting with night vision is legal, like people dealing with feral hog problems. And as part of this video, we're going to go through at both during the daylight and at night to go through some of the functions of this camera. But if you look at how it's mounted, you'll see you have just so much overhang here in the back. The question becomes, what do you put this on? Now, your eye needs to realistically be on this scope. One, you don't want to have any light leakage, and it does include a couple of different cups here But because you're looking at a screen, your sight picture is really like this. Like I can get it with my glasses on, but it's like right on top of that. So like personally, I wouldn't want to put this on something too high of recoil because you're just going to be beating yourself in the face with the scope every time you take a shot. So I was trying to decide what's a good option for this. Like what is going to be, smudged on my glasses, what's going to be a good option for this? Let's show you. Of all the guns that this makes sense to install on, my Fletcher Rifle Works Open Top 1122, which is based on the Open Top Ruger receiver design by Sebastian Unger, it made perfect sense. Because this has an integrated kind of a scout style scope mount, your scope mount's way up here, you have all of this space here that's kind of unused space. Now, you can take a normal scope and put it in like a cantilever mount that goes out to the back, but this just works really, really well. I need to get a cheek riser for this because this is a little bit of a high package, but that's kind of right where it should be. Lets me get my eye right where it should be to use the digital night vision. It's also a 22, which means I'm not worried about recoil. It's pretty heavy. This whole package weighs a fair bit with this night vision scope and this heavy bolt barrel, but it works really, really well and should absorb any recoil and should be able to shoot no problem. And it also shows the party trick really cool of this upper receiver. So a lot of people have said on this Open Top 1122, yeah, that's all well and good, but you can't, you know, if you mount a scope, you can't take the bolt out. Well, you still can take the bolt out. This is a little bit trickier than normal just because we're dealing with this scope being in the way. However, because this is a large cantilevered scope, you still can take the bolt out, clean it, perform your basic maintenance without having to remove your optic, without having to worry about returning it to zero, without having to do any of that pain in the butt stuff that you normally have to do when cleaning a Ruger 1022 style firearm. Sorry for the short clip. My camera stopped recording in the middle of one of my long monologues, so we're doing a take two on some of this. So I was talking about how you can still access the bolt. You can still take the bolt out to clean it without taking the scope off, without taking the action out of the rifle. That's a great combination between this setup with its long rear bridge here and, of course, the Fletcher Rifle Works 1122 design. It's a match kind of made in heaven for this setup. The eye box is exactly where it needs to be for the digital scope. And if you remove that and you're using the traditional scope, you're a little bit more forward of where you normally would be for a cheek weld, but it's still perfectly usable in that configuration. If we're talking about cost, so this package, complete with a couple of accessories that it comes with, comes in at about $500. It's like 499 bucks. So call it 500 bucks, which is expensive for a basic scope. But this isn't a basic scope. It's digital night vision. It's about the same price as a Sightmark. And it seems to have a better camera, a better screen inside, better electronics from what I'm seeing. So it's priced comparably for where it should be. Are you comparing this to like super high-end Zeiss optics? No, and you're also not paying that price. Does it work as well as something like a Gen 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever gen we're on of actual intensified tube night vision? No, but you're also not spending like $3,000 to $30,000 for it. What will add some cool functionality is when I'm able to take this little guy and add a flip down mount for it so that you can use it instead of just as a weapon mounted optic or weapon mounted digital night vision, to be able to use it as a head mounted digital night vision. I think that'll add a lot of functionality to this and be something that you can set up at home and print at home. And it seems like it'll be able to do that really well. I just need to actually get around to designing it. So we're going to go outside and we're going to capture some video through the unit as well as through the phone of both daylight and outside. I'm going to dismount it from the gun because we're going to be doing this in my neighborhood, and I really don't feel like having the police called on me today because I am out here wielding my precision night vision 1122 design. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's, run a little bit of demonstration through it to go through some measured distances to see what you can see at night, which you can see with just a plain camera as much as possible, what you can see with this camera as much as possible, and go from there and see if this might be a nice introduction into digital night vision for shooting for you.
So we're out here in Moab trying to get some video footage of this night vision scope. Obviously, when looking through like an iPhone, it doesn't capture the light really well at all, but it is dark. It is very dark out here. So let's go ahead and get some footage recorded using the scope itself. So we're back here in a pretty typical like urban environment, kind of neighborhood environment, not a ton of street lights, but here's what this camera sees. One thing that's cool is that you can take the actual scope itself off of the night vision assembly and adjust the focus, and you can use it just as a limited magnification monocle. Let's see how it works. So that's that same view. You can actually see all the way down to the end now. And this does have, see a little night vision, or excuse me, an infrared spot there that you can adjust for more of a spread or for more of a throw. So it definitely does enhance your ability to see at night. However much of a tactical advantage that'll give you is up to the scenario that you're trying to use it.
Okay, so that was just a very, very brief demonstration of this, both using it through the included scope as well as using it on its own. Where I really, really liked it was actually on its own, more so than the scope. When you're going to be shooting through multiple lenses, you're going to have some degree of degradation of picture because you are forced, to zoom in, but also you're going to have less light coming into the sensor. Now this works around it by having a huge, huge objective lens on this thing. However, it is still something that you're going to be dealing with this. Does it work? That's the important question. Yes, you can see better at night with this than without. That's just the fact of the matter. You are able to aim, you are able to get your scope zeroed, and you're able to get on target for, setting it up on a rifle for shooting or something like that. You are easily able to do that, and it does give you improved performance at night compared to without using a setup like this. Digital night vision is never as good as actual proper night vision, as something like, like a Gen 2, Gen 3, like an amplified tube setup. Digital night vision like this is never going to be as good as that. And it's priced accordingly, because this setup is, around like, high $400, low $500. Is that a good price for this? Well, that's up to you. If you want to dip your toes into digital night vision and see if it works for you, it might be good. It might work, it might not. Just depends on what your expectations are. For my expectations, this performed about exactly as I had anticipated it to. I have some familiarity with these types of systems. I've got my solar powered Sightmark digital night vision scope over there. And I like this one because it's a little bit more modular in nature. the fact that the night vision unit itself comes off means that I can design something like a flip down helmet mount for this to just run this as like a night vision navigation device instead of just a night vision aiming device. One thing that you might have noticed in the last video, we're going to see if it turns out after it renders or not, but the video replay did some funky time jumps. That just seemed to be a problem when I was editing the video. It seems to capture true and it seems to play back true otherwise, but it's just because it captures it in kind of a weird video format. It does kind of weird stuff when you're editing it. But when you're looking through it, when you're actually using the scope, it doesn't do that time stutter effect. You actually have a really good refresh rate on it. I never felt like I was outrunning the scope when moving around. You know, if I'm moving around quickly, I didn't feel like there was a lag or delay that would cause me any issues, unlike some other digital scopes that I have used. So those are kind of my basic thoughts on using this thing. Now, for actual firearm use, which is the whole point here, this is a rifle scope, I don't know that I would use it on a high caliber rifle. The reason being, I'll take my glasses off because of this, you need to really be in the eye box for this. Like, you need to be right up against the lens. And if you're shooting something with high recoil, it is going to push this back into your face. The eye relief is so short on this because of how the screen setup is that, like, I can't even use it with my glasses on, which is a little bit of a problem. If I use it with my glasses on, it pushes right up against it and I still don't see the entirety of the lens. And also, I keep getting smudges. I feel like I've cleaned this thing a bunch of times, but it still smudges my glasses every single time. So that's sort of the cons of this system is yeah, I'd put it on like a 22 or maybe on a particularly soft shooting 5.56 rifle. I would not put this on a high caliber rifle at all, just because physically you are going to be smashing this scope into your face every time you shoot, and that's just gonna be a bad time. But as I talked about earlier in the video, which was recorded like a week before we're recording this, is until I have a different fun shirt on, for my 1122 open top, 1022, perfect, fantastic setup for this. I was hoping to get some indoor zero light shooting done. However, the range that I normally go to that allows me to do that completely is tearing out and is replacing and repairing their 100-yard indoor rifle range. So I wasn't able to get out and actually shoot with this, which is unfortunate because this is a night vision scope and not shooting through it is doing you guys a disservice. I'll be the first person to tell you that. But unfortunately, I did need to at least get this preliminary video on it out to kind of go over some of the features and functions. And once that range is back open, we can revisit this and we can go out there and we can get some more video footage shooting out at the range with this. In the meantime, many thanks for OneLeaf for sending this over. It's a cool setup. It's a good way to kind of dip your toe into enhanced nighttime shooting. But like I said, where I'm really excited about it isn't even necessarily using it as a scope, is going to be to design and have a printable like flip down mount for it. Just because using it like that, using it as just a standalone amplified night vision device really worked well in my testing. Really, really well. And that's probably where I'll be using this most of the time. So, of course, as always, thanks for watching.